Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or the guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi there. Welcome to the 46th episode of A Couple Takes on MS. Hi, this is Dan Digman.
And hi, it's me, Jennifer Digman.
And that's my lovely wife. And we're talking as far as a couple takes on MS. We're a married couple, but we also want to show different perspectives of life with this chronic disease of the central nervous system. And today, what we're going to talk about is keeping control over multiple sclerosis. And that seems kind of an odd thing to say because this is an unpredictable disease of the central nervous system. But Jennifer...
But you say it's an unpredictable disease of the central nervous system. But I think it's pretty important to say how you know that. I mean, you don't know it just because you're my caregiver and I'm living with multiple sclerosis. But
you can...
But he also, okay, he's not picking it up.
I'm not picking it up, babe.
Dan is also living with MS. That's why it's a couple takes on MS. We're both caregivers for each other, but we both have had the disease for nearly 20 years, or in my
You're
case,
more than, I'm
more than
less
20
than.
years. And we think it's pretty important that one of the things that we have to remind ourselves constantly is there is a way that we can control this unpredictable disease.
And that's what we want to talk about, is just giving you tips, ideas, ways that you can keep control over this disease. I mean, obviously, yeah, the disease is going to do with it what it do with you what it will, but at the same time, there are things that we can do to help improve our odds, our chances, and our feelings and quality of life.
And certainly, as you all know, I've been living with the disease for over 20 years, and I'm no longer able to walk on my own. And I'm not able to stand up, and I no longer drive. But if I wanted to take control, I could conceivably get hand controls. If I was brave enough, I could get behind the wheel again. So that's something I can control. But, you know, the disease does progress. That's what, you know, chronic illness like MS does. But in spite of that fact, and maybe, you know, with me not walking, I still have to remember there are things I can control.
And things you can do. And tell me then, Jennifer, what is it we did today that is just giving, noticeable difference just with one massage?
Well, see, you answered your own question.
Well, but I want you to talk about this because you haven't been there. I mean, and that's something you can do, something we all can do with multiple sclerosis is get a massage.
And I did get a very good massage today, and as I've complained about before, I'm not using my right hand as well as I used to. The muscle is getting very tight and it's constantly in a fist, despite the fact that I have a hand brace that I wear at night to stretch it out. I went to a massage today to have a 45-minute massage and it was heavenly. I highly recommend it. But my massage therapist, Ken, he focused on my hand and he rubbed those muscles and he explained to me where some of my weakness comes from and just rubbed some of the large muscles in my forearm. And then also rubbed the small muscles in my fingers. And by the end of my massage, I was able to open my hand and I'm proudly sitting with it open right now. And so I think massage helped me with my hand. But you, Dan, you also had a massage. What did your What was your experience? Why did you do it?
Well, and I go to a massage therapist more regularly than you, and I think a lot of times for me as a caregiver, it helps just because of lifting you and everything. It helps to, support those muscles. But again, with my MS, my hands are problematic too, and so there is the focus on the forearms and the hand muscles. And I can't help but notice, and just that Jennifer, when we were there, that she's opening and closing her hand, which she can't normally do. Usually it's just in a fist and it's really hard to do, but that you have and can open your hands, I mean, just like that, just that stimulation of the muscles of that through a massage. I mean, obviously, my massage therapist, Shelley, as she says, I need to maintain at least once a month for a massage to keep the muscles going. And I think, obviously, yeah, I mean, your hand, in our experiences, they'll probably be balled up tomorrow, but it's just that constant, continued action. So again, that's something, and I think that this is what we spoil ourselves. We say it's spoiling, but it's a real benefit. This isn't just like a
No.
pampering thing. This is something that's, legitimate to help us.
And I imagine that if you felt that you could benefit from massage in your MS or whatever health condition you're living with, could benefit from massage, you could talk to your insurance, your health insurance provider, and see if your doctor could write a prescription for massage. Or as my massage therapist was saying, I could benefit from some occupational therapy and maybe I could have massage there. Or physical therapy. I know a number of years ago when I was still able to walk, but it was getting more difficult, I saw a massage therapist through my physical therapist, and she really helped to work on that tightness in my lower back and my legs, and that was provided through insurance. So, if you can't do that, maybe you can afford to get 30 minutes of massage once a month, as Dan indicated. I mean, it is important for your quality of life.
And with that, then, as far as talking about things that you can control and that MS has no control over, it's our diet. It's the food we bring in, the food we put into our bodies to give us the energy. And that's the one thing, whether or not you have MS, whether MS is acting, aggressive in us, we still have control over the food we eat.
And Dan often reminds me that our body is like an engine, and you wouldn't put cheap gas or water in your car engine. So don't fill up your engine in your body with sugar and junk food. And I mean, certainly there are times, I will be honest, where I feed my emotions with crappy food to make me feel better. That's my coping mechanism that I need to work on. But your diet really can play an important part. I'm sure you all have read plenty about gut bacteria and heard about, probiotics and just how important diet is with the disease. And that's why Dan and I try to maintain a healthy diet with fruits and vegetables and lean protein. And certainly I do it because I am a Weight Watcher into perpetuity, let's be honest. But that diet seems to have helped me. And of course, the intake of water as part of a healthy diet is really important, which is the double-edged sword for any of us living with MS, bladder problems. But I think diet is really important to manage and take care of.
It was interesting. I had seen our friend Allison. She's a big health food junkie, as it were. I saw she had posted something on Instagram with like a picture of like her breakfast with all these fresh fruits. But she had just noted, she's asking the question, if I'm quoting the health food junkies and just saying that this isn't just an MS exclusive thing, but just that to the health food people, and just saying how if you don't eat, or if you have a bad day or you're not eating all the foods that you should eat, just how much you feel that you pay for it the next day. And all the, the people chiming in saying, oh my gosh, yes, it's terrible if we don't have our foods. And my point being with the health food junkies, as they were, and I'm using that term liberally and whatever, but it's just that if it's for those people who are quote unquote health food people, and they have issues, I mean, they're not dealing with the chronic disease that we are. And so if they're feeling, if they're people in their peak conditions notice when they're bringing in not the best foods, what about us that are living with a chronic disease, and should we thereby then not be eating healthy foods?
I think it's that thing that you always go back to is you blame the MS. Oh, I don't feel good because of the MS. Well, you can't control it, but what about the tertiary things that you can control, like your diet? So if you're really tired tomorrow morning, is it because you drank a lot of alcohol and you ate a lot of greasy food when you were out with your friends last night? Making those little changes in your diet really can help. I know both Dan and I, when it comes to Monday morning, and if we've eaten like crap all weekend, we'll say we've got to do better. We're tired, our skin doesn't look so good, and we're getting older and we need to treat our bodies better. So diet being one thing that you can control, I think that's important.
And you made a good point then, as far as like, if you wake up and you feel groggy and everything, that's another big thing that we can do, living with multiple sclerosis and taking control, is get more sleep, is get the amount of sleep that you need.
That is recommended and that you need. And I feel like, and I'm speaking for myself, and I don't know if you do, but like when my body naturally, like my little internal alarm clock wakes up at 6 o'clock because I went to bed at 10 the night before, it's like, bing, that's 8 hours, time to get up. I feel like my body is getting more regulated and like my internal alarm clock is working better. And I think that makes me feel charged up for the day. Do you feel like?
I think so too, and that's where we really have been consciously paying attention to that and getting to bed and noting that no TV show we have recorded on our DVR or we're binge watching on Netflix is worth staying up until midnight when you have to get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And so it is just that regulating our body and going to bed around at about the same time every night and getting up around and about the same time every morning.
If you have children and your kids are in school, you make them get their little butts to bed by like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, depending on the age. So if it's important enough for your children, it's important enough for you. Yeah, set a bedtime and maintain it, keep it stable. I think your body will thank you, much like the diet, and the fluid intake. And one of the things that I love to do before Dan and I go to sleep is he helps me stretch. He stretches my leg muscles because I'm laying down, and there's a lot more that I can do laying in bed that makes it, that I can't do when I'm sitting in my chair and I elevate my feet and he stretches my arms. And I think that in too goes part and parcel with the massage. I'm able to have a little bigger range. Stretching at night before we go to sleep, I look forward to that. And then the next morning I will spring out of bed because I'm well rested, but also because my muscles have had a chance to recover from a little strenuous stretching and maybe doing a couple arm weight exercises or things like that. I think that routine is really important if you're living with multiple sclerosis or really any chronic illness.
And that's the big thing too, is the stretching. I mean, we wait until before we go to bed, because then you're in bed and we can do the stretching, and it's not where you're worn out to where you can't do transfers because you're already in bed, you're already ready to sleep. But I think then for the rest of us, for all of us, and even during the day, we could do even just the stretching of the arms. And I think, when they talk about the importance of yoga and Tai Chi and all, the stretching. But I think that's the one thing is obviously, if you can do yoga and all these other exercises, great. But it's like don't let it intimidate you to the point where it's like the big thing is stretch. I mean, I know that my thing now, working remotely, working from home, and just not having the needing to get up and go out and talk to coworkers or go to meetings and things, it's all right there. But I've gotten in the habit of, every 45 minutes that I'm there at the computer writing and doing stories, doing whatever, just getting up and just stretching my arms. It's just that big stretch, stretching the legs.
You do that, and you've also, I've noticed in the last few days, last few weeks, to be honest, you get up and you go for a walk. And granted, it's not like half an hour, it's like 5-10 minutes. You just walk because that walking is important to stretch out those muscles, and that's really.
I think that was the big thing. That was a big transition for me in rethinking things because I used to run. So I was out, running, 4.5, 5 miles every day. And then I was just thinking when I stopped running, I was just like, oh, it isn't worth it just to go for a walk. It isn't worth it just to go there. And you realize, yeah, actually it is. And so it's just the doing. And you can't walk, but you do your leg bike, you do your standing frame, we do our stretching. Just whatever you can do, keep
and
moving.
I think stretching is a natural segue into exercise. I think exercise is another thing that I can control, that you can control, that you out there, or you caregivers, we all can control. Even if the level of physical fitness isn't what it used to be, as Dan was saying, he doesn't run like he used to. If he goes for that walk and he gets an opportunity to stretch and to work on his posture and to do some breathing, that exercise will pay off for him. And that, he can when he walks around the neighborhood and he walks in the door, he can say, boom, take that, MS. I just went for a walk. I'm combating you, and your exercise. I love when I finish riding my bike. Just like, bam, there goes, The Price is Right, which I always watch the show and ride my bike. And as Drew is getting done, I'm like, I have just managed to do something good for my body.
And that's where you realize just how much that does then to increase your energy levels. And I know that's, we deal with multiple sclerosis, we deal with, one of the biggest symptoms is the fatigue factor. And I know that, I've been dealing with things where it's like, I wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall back asleep. And I don't know how many of you out there, that's your experience. It's like you can't sleep at night, but then come the daytime, all you want to do is sleep. And I think it's just because we've been getting better with our sleep schedules, because we're doing more exercise, we go to bed. The last probably couple weeks, the number of nights that I've slept through the night. Mm-hmm. And I think the big thing for me too, in terms of getting that quality sleep, is I've made it a point to cut myself off from coffee by like 3 in the afternoon, which I was, drinking coffee at, 6, 7 at night. It's like you can't do that. So I think those are the things too that you have control over, is making sure that you don't have a lot of caffeine in you, or that you have things ready to go so you can get a good night's sleep.
And then of course, I notice, and I'm wondering if you do, but when I exercise, it changes my attitude. I feel like I'm approaching the day a little bit more positively. It's frustrating if I can't get my hands to hold onto my arm bike and I have to instead ride my leg bike because I can strap my feet in. But it helps my attitude when I finish. I love being able to say, take that. Like, look what I did. I watched my diet. I stretched, I exercised. that really helps my attitude. And I think along with that is medicine. And I know when I take my vitamins, when I am taking my baclofen the way I'm supposed to, or when you
I
are
take
taking your disease modifying therapy, your injection, I know that's gotta make you feel better. It's a little pain sometimes, but
Well, and it is, and that, what you're saying with all that we're talking about, just what it does for your attitude and how the attitude is such a major thing to help you just stay ahead of the disease. And so when, if you have a good attitude or you stay with a positive kind of attitude, if something bad happens, because the reality is bad things will happen because of this disease. I mean, but it's like when said bad things happen, if you're already mentally in a good place with your attitude, it makes it easier to overcome when the bad happens.
I agree.
And I think what was the it's just there was some saying or something that
Yeah, one of my sorority sisters back in college, Shannon would always say attitude is everything. And I think in no time more appropriate than being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I think attitude is everything. If you can approach this disease head on and really take control, I think that helps. And I think another thing that helps is seeing your doctors, and your physical therapists, and your occupational therapists, and just being honest with the doctor when you need help or when you need better control over the disease. I think that really helps. I know that I'm grouchy if I don't get to see my neurologist at least once a year because I want her to see how I'm controlling MS.
Well, and I think that when you see your doctor, when you're able to do that, it helps me to ask the questions. I think it's so easy for us when we're looking like in the world and like social media and everything with people and your armchair doctors that diagnose your things. A lot of this disease can get in our heads and we start thinking, daydreaming, second guessing, assuming the worst, figuring the worst, reading into things. If you see your doctor and you ask the questions, it's like it clears your head so you don't, I think it's our human nature, or maybe people with multiple sclerosis, is we always assume the worst case scenario, or it's like this is going to be the worst thing, that if I have something wrong with me, of course it's the MS, and this is when it's going to help.
I think we have a little armor where we kind of prepare ourselves for the worst. And sometimes I think that does a disservice, like you're saying, where you're thinking, oh, this is the big one. And it's like, maybe it's not. Maybe if you just tweak your diet or your exercise, or if you ask for help more, or you see a doctor, that will change the way you see your MS or chronic illness, whatever it may be. So I think that's why it's really important to, and we just made a list kind of things we can control. And I think that's really powerful. And I would recommend keeping your mental health is super important. That you make a list of yourself. Yeah, you've been living with the disease for 20 years, possibly, and maybe you can't walk anymore, but what can you do? I think that's really important to look at what you still have control over, because I bet you that you can control a lot more than you think you can. And that feels really good to know that, yes, in the grand scheme of things, MS may be at work in your body, but there are ways that you can control yourself. And I think that's pretty important. And of course, right along with attitude, I have to say I would be remiss if I didn't say surround yourself with positive people, whether that be an online community or an in-person support group or just your family and your friends. just reach out, look for somebody so you can share your journey with them.
Well, and I think that, and that's, just probably just as key with everything. We have online communities, in-person support groups, pastors, doctors, teachers, whoever. But it's like, look at everything we've talked about. We did like massage, diet, exercise, stretching, sleep. And the attitude, it's like you surround yourself with those people. Then all of a sudden, with all of those things we talked about, there are people there who will hold you accountable or who will support you in those things, because you can find an exercise buddy. You can find somebody to hang out with that, just to help you maintain that focus and control. And so, do you think you have your MS under control? Do you think you have control over your MS?
I think I do. I mean, certainly there are facets of it that just stink up the joint that I don't have control over. But I think I want to be focused more on the things I can control. I think that helps my mental health immensely, is what I can control. What about you, mister? Do you have your MS in control?
I think so. I think that, obviously, yeah, there are things that I can't do, or things that that MS makes difficult in my life.
Right.
But it's like, it's looking at everything else that I can't control, and for those moments of the day, yeah, and I think that's the big thing, is not letting MS consume my day. Look at every minute of the day, every second of the day. How much is MS actually a factor in that? And I just like, it's just like just making it more about me, making it more about my friends, and everything that's not MS. And so I think that's the big thing. And I think a lot of that does tie back to attitude, and I think that's where it has to start. But again, in terms of like keeping control over your MS, we talked about going out, get a massage, controlling your diet, getting enough sleep. Just think of the things that you can do and take control, that the MS is not involved.
And we thank you very much for listening into our show. And we would love to hear from you, and you can reach out to us at danandjenniferdigman.com or on Twitter at danjendig.
And just let us know. I mean, we talk about this. We want to hear your perspectives. How are you keeping control over your MS? Check in with us again. Thanks for seeing what we're up to. I'd like to know what you're up to. Again, this is Dan and Jennifer Digman on A Couple Takes MS. I take a couple takes on MS. I want to thank the Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme music for our show, and thanks to the MS&Me Radio Network for having us along. Take care.